Imagine standing inside a beautiful, sunlit garden. You can hear a mother laughing, children splashing in a backyard pool, and the smell of fresh strawberries in the air. Now, imagine looking directly over the garden wall and seeing a massive chimney billowing thick, black smoke that smells of burning human flesh. This wasn't a nightmare. This was the actual daily life of the HS family. The children played with toys made by dying prisoners, while just 50 feet away. Their father engineered the slaughter of over 1 million human beings. For decades, we have looked at the Holocaust as a massive, faceless machine of evil. But machines don't feel joy. Machines don't make choices. The real horror of Auschwitz wasn't the concrete walls or the gas chambers. It was the human beings who ran them. People who went to work, tortured children, listened to classical music, went home, kissed their wives, and slept like babies. How does a normal human heart turn into something so utterly demonic? Today, we are looking directly into the eyes of the absolute worst of humanity. We aren't just telling history. We are breaking down the psychological profiles of the 3 most feared monsters of Auschwitz. And the last one we will cover, a woman so sadistic she shocked even her fellow SS officers, will make you question everything you thought you knew about human nature. Welcome to the darkest dark of human history. This is the story of the monsters of Auschwitz. Let's start with the man who built the nightmare, Rudolf HS. HS wasn't a screaming maniac. He wasn't loud. In fact, his co-workers described him as quiet, obsessively organized, and deeply bureaucratic. He was essentially a corporate CEO, but his product was death. When HS was appointed the Commandant of Auschwitz in 1940, it was just a small, broken-down Polish army barracks. But HS wanted to impress his superiors. He wanted to be efficient. Before HS, the Nazis used firing squads to execute people. But HS realized that shooting thousands of people every day was too stressful for his SS soldiers. Think about that. He didn't care about the victims. He cared about the mental comfort of the killers. So, he looked for a corporate solution. He discovered a pesticide used to kill rats in the barracks, Zyklon B. He tested it on Soviet prisoners in a sealed basement. He watched through a small glass peephole as the crystals turned into gas, suffocating the men inside within minutes. HS later wrote in his diary that he felt relieved. He had found a clean, quiet way to mass-produce murder. Under his leadership, Auschwitz expanded into a massive complex that could slaughter 10,000 people every single day. But here is the twist that will make your skin crawl. HS lived with his wife and 5 children in a luxury villa, literally attached to the camp. His wife, Hedwig, called it her paradise. The prisoners were forced to clean their house, cook their food, and tend to their beautiful garden. The HS children grew up watching the smoke rise from the crematoriums. To them, it was just regular weather. When HS was captured by British forces after the war, he didn't deny what he did. He didn't cry. He simply corrected the prosecutors during his trial. When they accused him of killing 3 million people, HS calmly interrupted and said, "No, it was only 2.5 million. The rest died of disease." To the very end, he didn't see himself as a monster. He saw himself as a good employee who did a highly efficient job. If Rudolf HS was the factory manager, the next was Dr. Joseph Mengele. Mengele did not look like a monster. He was highly educated, held a PhD. was exceptionally handsome, always wore pristine uniforms, and constantly smiled. The prisoners called him the Angel of Death because he stood at the train platforms as the crowded cattle cars arrived, casually whistling classical music while deciding who lived and who died. With a flick of his thumb, he pointed. Left meant immediate death in the gas chambers. Right meant forced labor and slow starvation. But there was a third category. If Mengele saw someone unique, a giant, a dwarf, someone with two different colored eyes, or most importantly, identical twins' eyes would light up with excitement. To Mengele, Auschwitz wasn't just a camp. It was a giant, unregulated laboratory where he could perform any experiment he wanted without laws, ethics, or mercy. Mengele was obsessed with twins. He wanted to unlock the genetic secret to multiplying the Aryan race. His experiments on these children are too horrific for words. But history demands we remember. He would inject deadly bacteria, like typhus, into one twin to see if the other twin would show the same symptoms. He would attempt to artificially change eye colors by injecting blue dye directly into the pupils of children, causing permanent blindness and excruciating pain. On one night, documented by his assistant, Mengele personally murdered 14 identical twins in a row by injecting chloroform directly into their hearts, just so he could perform immediate autopsies on their identical bodies. The most terrifying thing about Mengele was his dual personality. He would bring toys, candy, and chocolates to the children in his lab. He would let them call him Uncle Mengele. He would play games with them, win their trust, and the very next morning, wheel them into the operating room to dissect them alive without anesthesia. Unlike Hoss, Mengele was never caught. He escaped to South America, lived in hiding for decades, and died an old man in 1979 while swimming at a beach in Brazil. He never expressed a single ounce of regret, believing until his last breath that he was contributing to the advancement of science. Now, we come to the final, and perhaps most psychologically disturbing figure in the history of the camp. Irma Grese, the media later labeled her the beautiful beast, and the hyena of Auschwitz. When we think of Nazi war criminals, we usually picture middle-aged men in dark coats. Irma Grese was a 20-year-old girl. She had blonde hair, innocent blue eyes, and a flawless face. She looked like a Hollywood movie star of the 1940s. In fact, she spent hours in front of her mirror styling her hair and dreaming of becoming an actress after the war. But inside Auschwitz, she was arguably the most volatile and sadistic guard the prisoners ever encountered. Grese dropped out of school at 14, was bullied as a child, and was completely brainwashed by Nazi youth propaganda. When she was given authority over 30,000 female prisoners at Auschwitz, something clicked inside her mind. The girl who used to run away from fights, as a child suddenly realized she possessed total power over life and death. She wore heavy leather boots and always carried a custom-woven leather whip. She purposefully walked through the camp rows, looking for the slightest excuse to use it. Survivors testified that she developed a sick fixation with beauty. Because she was vain, she felt intense jealousy toward attractive female prisoners. She would purposely select the most beautiful women to be sent to the gas chambers. She also kept a massive, ferocious guard dogs. She would purposefully starve them for days. And then, while forced labor columns were marching, she would release the dogs onto any woman who fell behind out of exhaustion. She would watch smiling as the animals tore the prisoners apart. Multiple witnesses stated that the sight of blood seemed to genuinely intoxicate her. When the British liberated the camp and arrested her, she was only 21 years old. During her trial, she showed absolutely zero remorse. She laughed out loud in court while survivors recounted her atrocities. She truly believed she had done nothing wrong. At the age of 22, she was sentenced to hang, making her the youngest woman to be judicially executed under British law in the 20th century. Even as she walked up the steps to the gallows, she looked the executioner dead in the eyes and uttered her final word. Schnell, meaning quickly. Rudolf Hoss, Josef Mengele, Irma Grese. A bureaucrat, a doctor, and a young girl. 3 completely different people, from 3 completely different backgrounds. It is easy for us to look back at history and call them monsters. It makes us feel safe to think that they were a different species of human being. But the cold, terrifying truth that we must accept is this: they weren't monsters born from darkness. They were regular human beings who allowed hatred, propaganda, and unchecked power to slowly erase their humanity. Auschwitz didn't create these people. It simply gave them a place to show the world who they truly were. The lesson of Auschwitz isn't just that evil exists. The lesson is that if we are not careful, if we let hatred blind us, the monster sleeping inside human nature can wake up in any of us. Thank you for watching this deep dive into history. If you believe these stories must never be forgotten so that they are never repeated, please subscribe, leave a comment below, and share this video. Stay vigilant, and we will see you in the next chapter of history.